Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 27. Hello, welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pomble.
Hey.
Hey. So we've started this episode already, but due to the demon that is lag and bad internet, we had to start again. But I think we're all sorted now. Thus the joys of
Hopefully.
Yeah. So we're just brainstorming on different topics, and something came up in my head, something that we have talked about a little bit on a couple of episodes, but we spend...
Yeah, I think it was like the roaster episode, we kind of touched on it, but...
Yeah, so we spend most of the podcast talking about how to set your band up for potential success, so I thought we should talk about 5 reasons why bands break up and how to avoid it. So I guess the whole podcast is about how to avoid breakup, because if you're successful, then you're not breaking up. But this is like, I don't see any more than 5. There might be more, but the 5 main reasons why bands tend to break up. And there's one that's not on here actually, which I'll say just now, which I'm not gonna include it because it's silly, but being in a relationship with someone in the band usually leads to band breakup.
Oh yeah, straight up, man. That is such a
That's the sort of
unless
Yoko Ono thing.
I mean, there's always going to be an exception to the rule.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you can think of 10 different artists that split up with their spouses were in the same band. Fleetwood Mac, ABBA. I said 10, but I can only think of 2. Way.
Well,
there's way more. There's way more.
There's a lot. There's. Yeah.
I think Paramore was one
actually
as well. I don't know if you know. I think Hayley Williams was going out with the guitarist of Paramore or something. They all kind of fell out and stuff, and then did they not get a new guitarist or something? I don't know. Anyway, so we'll go on to the 5 actual reasons, it's just a given that don't bring your girlfriend to recording and rehearsal sessions.
Don't get involved. Yeah.
I've seen it happen a couple of times just in the recording studio where bands will bring in their girlfriend, and they'll usually just sort of find a corner, sit on the floor, and scene kid hoodie, just kind of sit there and on their phone, maybe taking pictures. That's fine. Like if they're out of the way and they're not really interfering. They're just kind of there along with whoever they are with. But if it starts to get, the band is hanging out and then the guitarist is off with his girlfriend in the corner, not really interacting with anyone else, it starts to get a little bit us and them kind of thing, which I think that's where the main problems come from.
I've definitely been in a couple. It's always really awkward as well when girlfriend or boyfriend, it doesn't really matter, when somebody's significant other, I guess, is just there, just in a rehearsal, is just such a mood killer. It just feels really weird.
Yep.
It never feels right,
Yep.
It just feels really, really strange the entire time.
Yeah, you can't be.
I don't know if that's just if it's because of that, or if it's just that people that were sitting in were just strange. But
right, it's hard to get that band chemistry when there's other people in the room. I find it's kind of, you're not really behaving in the usual way because you're sort of your strange in group, in band behaviors change because there's someone from the outside that's looking in, so you feel like you have to be on your best behavior. But there's you know what it's like in like band banter. To other people, it's the strangest thing ever. I always feel sorry for hotel staff and people like that who are like clearing up after weddings, and then our wedding band is just having our usual, just terrible banter, and people must think we're absolutely, off the planet crazy just with some of the chat we have. But it makes sense to us when anyone else is there. It's just like, oh, there's other people here. We need to like not be weird. But anyway, we'll move on to number one. So the number one on this list, reason why bands break up, is lack of momentum. Yeah, lack of momentum. So this can be probably the number one killer, actually. Probably the worst one is, you've probably experienced this yourself, where there's just nothing's really happening. So it can be in various steps of the process. So right at the beginning, if you don't have any new songs or any creativity happening, that's just going to kill the growth, the momentum right away. So you can have material that you've already written, that the band can still be ticking over playing gigs on that material, but if there's no new seedlings, think of your songs as like planting seeds. You're not going to harvest those songs until they're fully grown, and then you can take them out and gig them and record them. It's like growing a plant. And if you're not planting new seeds, when your big plants that have fully flourished, when they all die off and shrivel away, you've got nothing left. And it's always important to keep planting seeds. So when you get lack of momentum, it can take a long time to lose that momentum if it's the song thing, because you can still tick along for about a year without new songs. And it can appear as if the band's doing really well, but you're actually losing a lot of momentum and not realizing it. So it's kind of a silent killer of bands. And then it can lead to tensions because there's nothing new. You're turning up to the rehearsal space and you're rehearsing the same songs you've been doing for the last year. It's quite demoralizing and boring for people.
Aye. I guess the other thing that we should maybe touch on as well is that we're not saying that as soon as you've recorded stuff, if you're writing a song a week or something ridiculous like that every rehearsal, like cool, whatever, like that's fine. But at least have basically just have little things going. Yeah. You don't have to, like, as soon as you finish recording your first EP, right? Okay, well, number 2, here we go. It's already ready. Yeah. Think about it, but you don't. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that don't feel pressured to write loads as well, because you're not going to write. You're not going to enjoy that. So it's
as long as there's something there.
As long
even
as there's
if it's
something,
like a song a month at least. Or even not even just an idea, something that's pushing your creativity. If there's nothing,
doesn't even have to be songs. It could be like, making music videos or something.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of like the middle process. So obviously, if there's no songs coming up, then you're not going to have any future work, because when you want to move on to new material, there's nothing there to move on to. But it can also, a lack of momentum can also come at the other end. So you've got songs, but you just haven't gotten around to recording them yet. No one's like pushing to book recording studios, or maybe you've recorded it and it's just been sitting there. You haven't gone and got it mixed, or you haven't released it yet. You've just been sitting on it, or you haven't been booking enough gigs. Like, just not enough movement. And it can just stagnate, and then people can bored and just move on. So another version of this is spending too much time on the recording process, and not enough time on releasing material. So bands can spend their entire lifetime without releasing anything. I've seen so many bands that just rehearse, or they've written 10 songs, they rehearse, then they record, and then they split up. Sometimes doesn't even get released. I've been in a band that wrote, recorded, rehearsed, and gigged a full EP and was never released. It's still not unreleased because the band split up. The stuff was there ready, but they were just sitting, spinning their wheels for ages, and then never released it. And it's just sitting somewhere in a hard drive. And if you've got like 7, 8, 9, 10 songs sitting there, and they've been sitting there for months and months, and you tell yourself excuses. Oh no, we want to get the sound just right. We want to make sure that guitar sounds just exactly how I want it. I mean, yeah, okay, you can make it sound how you want it, of course, but when it gets to the point where you're spending infinite amount of time on tiny little changes that really don't matter to the grand picture, is it going to be the difference between getting your band out there and becoming number one and barely making it? Is that one guitar change going to do that? No, probably not. And spending ages on, we need to get the artwork just right, or we need to get this just right. I mean,
yeah,
if you've got material and you've been sitting on it for ages and you've never released anything, you've got no social media presence whatsoever, my advice to you, if you've just started, just release it. You can get some artwork together in less than a week and just get it out there. It's the only way that you can just start the ball rolling. It's very, very depressing when you've been working in your little bubble for so long and nobody has heard your stuff yet. You can make up all these wee fake stories in your head, like, oh, people might not like this, people won't, blah 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 blah. You can make up all this false stuff. The best way is just to release it and see what happens, see how it does. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like obsessing on small unimportant things and not seeing the big picture. Seeing sometimes I say this quite a lot, is you want the feedback process to be really fast. And what I mean by that is the faster you release, the faster you'll get feedback, which will inform your creative process in the future. If you take so long to get stuff out there, you're not going to get your feedback fast and you're not going to learn fast,
It's almost a little bit like, what's the word? Maybe it's not quite the right word, but it does almost feel a little bit selfish. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Like you're sitting on this music, and it also becomes like it can become it's in danger of you're in danger of basically becoming like Gollum from Lord of the Rings and squirreling away your EP into a mountain, into the dark, and just obsessing over it and never showing it to anybody, so that's kind of what it's like. And just sort of sitting and obsessing and trying to perfect it. Don't bother. What I mean by that is bother to try to make it sound as good as it will possibly sound, but after a while it's best to just take the plunge.
I like the Gollum analogy. It's I've seen it firsthand from bands where you can have people arguing over how long the delay should be on the guitar solo, and you're sitting 3 months into recording, and we're we're saying, I just don't know about this song. It's just not coming together the way I want it. Oh, I've just scrapped the whole lot. Oh no, it's just can't get the sound the way I want it. Blah 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 blah. If it sounds good and the message of the song is there, release it. And don't nitpick on that one song. Don't be so attached to that one recording, that one song. Unless it's absolute trash, then obviously. But if it's a good song and you're like, oh, maybe could have done it better, just get rid of it. Just post it, release it, and then move on to the next song, new song, and learn from the mistakes of the first one. And go, well, maybe not do that like that again. Like you've got to keep the ball rolling. Like I know personally from stuff I've recorded and released of my own material with bands I've been in, there is loads of stuff that I would do different now. That's the whole point in doing it. It's so that you become better as an artist. Yeah. There's some stuff on the first Eriska album that I'm like, what? I cringe. Like,
yeah, same, man. Like, I'm listening to my bass playing and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, same.
I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, there's some things I played on the drums. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just like, ugh. And because I recorded and mixed it as well. So I've got a double whammy. I've got all my crappy playing and my crappy mixing now. No, there's things like I would have mixed differently. Like I'm like, okay, if I had to do that project again, I would have done this and that and this and that. And it's the only way I can learn that is if I release it and I figure out these things in future. But to be hung up on it forever and ever, your standards change daily. So when you've got an unchanging project, but yet your taste changes daily, you'll just keep changing the project to suit your taste, how it feels this month. The best thing is to just stop, release it. And that was a little time capsule of how you were at that time. That's the best way to think about it, I think. Anyway, moving on to point number 2. So point number 1 was lack of momentum. Point number 2 is lack of management. This is quite a bad one.
They tend to go kind of hand in hand, really, to be honest. If there's a lack of momentum, there's probably a lack of management.
Yeah. So number 1 killer.
Yeah, it's a big one.
With lack of management is having no central manager. So every successful company, organization, collective usually has a head gaffer, as we say, a sort of a go-to guy, a king, a queen, a prime minister, a president, a CEO, someone, the top guy or top guys or top gals. Like it can be 2 people or 1 person, as long as their communication's good. So the reason that is you can't organizations or bands, or it is so difficult to have, say, 6 people in a band and each person has exactly the same amount of managerial powers as the other. It's so difficult to maintain that because you get so many differing opinions and the thing gets split apart. If you've got 1 person who kind of manages the whole process and everyone else has their own roles and has their own vote within it, I think it's important to have a central manager or central 2 managers, say, so that less issues come about. So we talked about this in the management episode. We were talking about how when you have, say, 6 people doing 6 different jobs with no communication, the thing just breaks apart. Communication is like so key. And if there's 1 person or 2 people running the band, and then they delegate tasks to the other members, with regards to like emails and social media and all that, what happens is all of that managerial power is controlled by 1 or 2 people. So the sort of overall plan is managed by 1 or 2 people, and then everyone else just under obviously this is democratic, so if the manager can't turn around and go, oh, we're going to change our genre, and everyone's like, wait, what? Huh, what? Wait,
yeah.
when? No, it's still a democratic thing. But if the manager goes around and goes, right, okay, I think I'm going to do some posters today, and then the sixth member goes, oh, I think I'm going to design some posters today, and the next minute you've got 2 poster designers, it's like, oh crap, like we've just wasted time. You know, what he could have been doing the tickets or the contacting the venue. Instead, we're splitting ourselves apart, and then you get fights because, oh, I think my poster looks better than your poster, and blah 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 blah, and it just gets all messy and yucky. So that's why most bands have one manager, sort of more sort of like upper end bands have someone outside of the band that manages the whole band. The band has an equal say, or sometimes not. It depends on how it's all agreed upon. But that's an important thing as well, is like making sure that all that stuff is agreed upon beforehand. Because it would be kind of sucky if like everyone has equal say, and then you go into the band and it's like, I don't have any say at all. Like everything's all dictated to me. This is not how it was communicated to me in the beginning. Yeah. It's always goes back to that. So it's the last point I've got here on the management side. Something I've mentioned before is the reason that management breaks down sometimes is because the band have lost the concept that musicians should focus on the music and managers should focus on the audience. That's kind of how I think about the difference between those two roles. Musicians, the people playing the actual music, should focus on the music and just create good music and not create it for an audience. But a manager's focus should be to deliver that music to an audience and serve an audience. And the manager should never have a say in what happens musically. And the manager's job is to take that and make something of it. Make something of this creation. And when those lines get blurred and bands start writing music like managers and writing it because they want to, you know, like have it easily marketable, or it starts to get weird. And I just think creativity should always be the first thing you think about when it comes to music. But serving the audience is something the manager should do. So that means like keeping the website up to date, stocking the online shop, getting the gigs sorted out, making sure everything's all running really smoothly, and that does serve the audience. It serves the customer, if you like.
Not to be confused with writing for the audience. That's the last thing you want to do.
That's
Never
what I mean,
write music for an audience.
Yep. No, never.
Write music because you want to write music. You know, write music that you want to play, right? Yep. And then the thing is that the audience will gravitate towards that rather than like, you know, making something that's totally 100% beige and very, you know, inoffensive. You know, it's just like, here, have a plate of this like very plain, soft, inoffensive thing. Enjoy. Yeah. You know, the science tells you, oh yeah, that should 100% work, but it never works like that.
It's funny.
Just go wild.
When I don't know, maybe I'm talking rubbish, but I would say majority of the top 40 now, like maybe 90% of the music that's out now in the top 40, to me sounds like it was written for an audience and not written because it was something cool.
But I think we're just seeing a trend. We're seeing more of a trend like that because I think artists are chasing like algorithms. So like they're looking at what people are clicking on the most, you know, and then going for that kind of thing. But then again, because internet, you know, people are writing all sorts of ridiculous things, and music that, people wouldn't have heard 50 years ago is suddenly becoming, really popular. So
yeah,
it all depends.
cool. Yeah, basically, when you don't have someone taking the bull by the horns, taking the sort of leadership role and driving the focus of what the band is all about and delivering that music to an audience, when you don't have someone doing that, it just falls apart. And it leads to infighting because people have all different ideas, and it should be agreed upon immediately that we're going to trust this person to be the sort of just the guy driving it, and everything should be done to make sure that process keeps happening. And if it doesn't happen anymore, the band will die. So, number 3, the M word, money. So this is kind of these all tie in together as well, as you'll notice. Money doesn't really come into it right away. It usually comes into it later on when your audience is growing and you start to see some cash flow. So tensions, I've got here written, tensions arise when money is badly managed. So what that means is when you start selling merch and tickets and online sales and the rest of it, and bank accounts with money in it from gigs, from payments from people, it's got to be agreed upon from the outset what happens to that money and where it goes. Yeah. So if your band is like, okay, all ticket sales go to a central bank account rather, and that money will sit in there for when we need to record. There is money there to pay a studio, or when we need to order posters, or when we need to get petrol money to get up north to do that gig. That's where it comes from.
Like that, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And some bands don't work like that. Some bands are like, we just split everything, every gig, every profit gets split 4 ways or 5 ways, however many ways. And the band has no money at all. And whenever you need to pay for recording or rehearsals or whatever, it comes out of everyone's pocket and splits down. A lot of people do that. A lot of people work like that, which is fine early on. But when you start dealing with large amounts of audience, you can't work like that. You just can't, because you need an online bank account. You need an online thing. So when people buy something from your shop, they buy it on your Squarespace page, and then the money goes to Square, or it goes to PayPal, or wherever, and then Stripe goes into your bank account. Do you really want your entire online shop connected to your guitarist's personal account? No. Because if something really dreadful happens and he leaves the band, the entire business is all linked into your ex-guitarist's money. It's all really messy, which is why I would say separate all that out. Now, if you're playing an odd gig and you want to split it 5 ways or 4 ways, then that's up to you guys. But it's agreement should be made from the outset on where money goes from the profits. And when that's not made clear, that's when you start to see problems. And then you've got something separate from the band. It's kind of related, but not really, is the songwriting credits. So your PRS stuff, like the way it works is you write a song, you register it with the PRS in your own name. So anytime that is played live or whatever, you get a royalty. The songwriter gets a royalty, but the band doesn't. Yeah. However, there are some bands that, even though there is one writer, the songwriter credits the rest of the band so that they can get equal pay. Coldplay I'm thinking is an example of a band that does that. Mm-hmm. Now that
I think that's a really.
Say again.
I was going to say that I think that's a really smart way of doing it. Personally,
it keeps the peace.
because the way I'm sort of thinking about it is that somebody has come in with an arrangement, but people that are playing on it and in the rehearsal space, they will have been inadvertently, without you realizing, they'll be writing parts and they'll be adding to it.
Yeah.
So you might as well just put everybody as a writing credit on that track.
Yeah.
And then it just makes things so much easier.
Yeah. There was I can't remember. It's a story. It might be made up, but it doesn't really matter. It's the story of the band knew something was up when the drummer turns up to the lead singer who writes the song's house and turns up, and it's a $5 million mansion with a Ferrari sitting out front, and he's just come from his council flat in London. And you're like, we're in the same band. What is he doing? Oh yeah, he's the songwriter. Something's wrong here. And then obviously things happen. People fall out because we're putting in equal work. So would you say that in some situations, or in all situations, would it be better and preferable for a band to split songwriting credits? What's your opinion?
I didn't. You cut out there. Are you asking about songwriting credits?
Yes. Should it be split?
Right. Okay. Cool. Right. Okay. Personally, I think that unless you are the sole creator of the songs, and you write these songs and you completely dictate what's happening, and you're hiring a musicians, right, and your band changes every time, then don't share the songwriting credits. Keep them to yourself or amongst your group or whatever. But if you are going in, you're all going in together, you're writing songs together, you're doing all of it together, then I don't see why you shouldn't be, I think everybody should be credited, personally.
Right.
It might, I genuinely, I think that is the simplest thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're writing a song and let's say you write tunes and then you have in this one track you have 3 different tunes written by 3 different people, then it's going to be really difficult to attribute that one track to this one person here or so.
Yeah. It seems to be I remember learning about this in loads of situations in college, talking about bands that haven't split songwriting credits and bands that have, and it's it's not even close. The bands that split the credits tend to last longer and never break up, and Coldplay is a fine example of that. That's very big of Chris Martin to take a song that he wrote, lyrics and chords and all, and I mean obviously they'll have collaborative stuff as well, but for him to say, no, my investment is in Coldplay, it's not in me. The band wouldn't be anything without me, and I wouldn't be anything without the band, so I'm going to share everything with the band so that we can make this together. There's only 3 of us. Let's just, we are a team, a unit. I think there's something really nice about that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on to number 4, clashing personalities. Now, this is where we're getting into roaster territory. So, two or more people in the band clashing on opinions. Yeah, that happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, but here's the way that I sort of, I think when we're talking about clashing personalities, everybody is an individual, right? And everybody's different, okay? So no matter what happens, if you're in a band of more than one person, you're going to eventually clash, unless you have multiple multiple persons inside yourself, then I guess probably you're going to have disagreements with yourself. But if you're in a duo, you will have you will butt heads, and that's good. It's a good thing. However, it's not a good. I guess when it becomes a problem when people are just, for lack of a better word, are just dicks about it. You know.
Yeah.
So you can have different opinions are so good for a band because it promotes growth more than anything else. It promotes conversation. If you have a band where everybody just agrees with each other all the time and nothing interesting gets brought up, and you just end up sort of coasting along, quite the thing,
It's boring.
And it can get really boring. So I think that's good. Clash of minds is a good thing. But I think it's when you add your ego to your opinion, if that makes sense. If you add that onto it, then that's when it becomes a problem. Because I feel like in Eriska, we all six of us have completely different opinions.
Yeah.
All the time. And sometimes we just have to, we just learn to just go, you know what, I'm just going to step down on this one because even though I don't agree, everybody else does. Mm-hmm. So let's just go with it.
What I think is cool about that, though, is like the fact that 6 people with different ideas can come together and sort of come to an agreement, and that becomes that sort of compromise becomes the voice of Eriska. It's a sort of mixture of everyone's thing, and it's always, if there's always a fight between 2 members and like what one person wants one way and one wants the other way, it usually goes down to a vote. Usually like, what do we think this one? And then if the vote is law, like if the vote is for person A, then we go with person A. Or if we can compromise, if we can meet a middle ground, sometimes you can't do that because like if it's a binary choice, like it's either this or that.
Yeah.
Then you can't really do that. But it's if it's like should we play this venue or should we not play this venue? You can't compromise on that. It has to be one or the other. So we usually put those decisions down to a vote. And it's quite cool when it's just like a country, really. It's like we have all these different ideas of how to run a country, and they everyone bands together and compromises, and we get the voice of that country or nation or band or whatever. And it's, some people might not like it, some people might hate it, but it's fair. Well, can be fair sometimes not fair, but.
And the other thing as well is that sometimes if we've maybe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but what usually tends to happen is a decision gets made. Let's say I was like, oh, I didn't like this decision, but like everyone else has decided that this is going to be, so I'll go along with it.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is I'm like, no, that was a good decision.
Yeah, sometimes.
Because the thing is that because at the end of the day, usually the things that work out 90%, 99% of the time, the things that get voted in were the right decision, Yeah. So you need to be quite sort of, I don't know what's the word.
Willing to roll with it.
Just need to be, quite chill about it.
Yeah.
So,
last part of that is, it's keeping the main goal of the band in mind and focus on the music. That's kind of the way to get rid of this clash, political clash in a band.
Yeah.
And never get angry. It's always better to compromise than get everything your own way. That's just not nice. Especially when there's someone in your band who's constantly getting their own way. It's just not. It's not fun.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
roasters.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're not saying we're not saying that you always have to be like meek and mild when you're in a rehearsal and be really nice and polite, because there's like getting passionate is okay, but just being an absolute, I suppose what I mean by never get angry is just like, don't throw your toys out the pram and make a big scene and then go, I'm quitting the band, and storm out.
Yeah, that's also roaster behavior.
You guys would be nothing without me. Don't do that.
So, number 5, musical differences. This is a weird one because I've never personally, whenever someone has a different musical taste to me in a band, I think that's a really good thing. Personally, I think that's a really good thing. I really enjoy it when someone comes into the band and they're completely different, because you're going to get a really weird flavour of music. Whereas some people hate that. Some people think, oh no, it has to be this way. And then someone else is like, oh no, it has to be this way. So musical differences is when two or more people... To be in
this band, you can only listen to these 5 bands.
Yeah, it's weird, and I don't like that. And it used to be like that when I was in my late teens. Like, oh, would you listen to that band for? Yeah. I'm like, well, it's my taste. I can do what I want. Shut up. So it's 2 or more people trying to pull the band in different musical directions. That's what musical differences are. Personally, I think musical differences, if people understand how to think about it, I think musical differences are really good. But musical differences with ego can be really bad and damaging. That's why I've put them down as a step to band breakup. So, like I said, finding common ground and meeting somewhere in the middle. So, and you might just create a new genre or a new sound that's never been done before. If you get someone who's like, I think we should be more like this, I think we should be more like that, you might, if you just stop clutching hard onto your Linkin Park and just maybe another sound might be quite nice. I'm speaking from experience. Or maybe Bullet for My Valentine isn't what we should sound like. Great band, but why should we just rip off some other band? And why should we? I mean, by all means, take the influence of bands you really like and combine it with other people's tastes and see what we can come up with. Don't write music that you would write, not something your hero would write.
Yeah. And just play about with stuff. Like I was writing a new I wrote a tune ages ago at the start of lockdown. I had like a huge creative like and just absolutely go crazy. Like I wrote a little like I was writing like a cute little like sort of jazzy kind of like fusion-y tune, and then Gavin was like, oh, here's this like ridiculous 1916 rhythm, why don't you do something with that? So now it's a little cute jazz tune with a gent breakdown at the end, know? So
that's it's fun. It's fun to just see what kind of monstrosity you can create. People like that. No one wants to listen to beige. People want some cool weird stuff. Like for example, the Beatles. Like I always use them as a reference because they are like the band 101. They took different styles. So you had John Lennon. Kind of grew up on skiffle. Skiffle was a sort of fast-paced, washboard style that came out in the 1950s, and his mother taught him how to play banjo and stuff, and it was fast-paced folk music of the. That's kind of how to think of it. And then Paul McCartney came in with, things like Elvis and Chuck Berry and all these different sort of American rock and roll stuff, and they combined the two to form the Beatles. So you've got the sort of blues element and the rock and roll element combined with the fast-paced rhythmic element, the splashy hi-hats and the backbeat from the snare drum, and it kind of all mashed together to create that sound. Now, if they had all thought the same and played the same and had the same style, it would have been a very beige band. The fact that they were all pulling and coming from different directions was their strength. It's really cool to have that, I think. So last point on musical differences. When people say this, whenever you see an official band websites or Facebook pages, you always see the band is splitting up because of musical differences. It's never musical differences. It's especially in the sort of beginner band, like not signed. It's usually because one or two people in the band are just really crap musicians. So if it's certain members' lack of practice ability, that can be musical differences. They're just no good, and we had to get rid of the guitarist, and as a result, the band broke up. So that comes back to everyone's working really hard, but the bass player or the drummer hasn't learned the tunes, is still playing out of time and speeding up and slowing down, and how you address that, and that technically is a musical difference because you've got different standards. But in this case, it is that there's not really a compromise when your guitarist doesn't know the verse chords. It's just like it goes back to that whole just do the work, practice, make sure you know what you're doing before you get to the rehearsal studio, the recording studio, and that stuff needs to be addressed in a calm and non-confrontational way. It's when it gets into conflict that's when bands break up. It's roaster behavior again. This is like roasters part 2. But how would you go about? I think we've talked about this before, but if the conflict is coming from the chords are this, but this guy's playing something else, and the conflict is the guy won't play it different because he's convinced that it is this way, whereas everyone else is like, no, it's this way. What do you do in that situation?
So there's a couple of ways. One, you can go for, well, I know what chords they are because I wrote it.
Yeah, but I'm playing a slash chord, Julian. Don't you know slash chords? I'm doing a walking bass line. Oh, I've heard it all, man. Like, I know it's a D, but I'm playing an A, and A is in a D, so, that kind of stuff. This lack of theory, but lack of knowledge.
I suppose at that point I'd be like, but I didn't ask you to play any extensions on a D, like I just want you to play a D, not like a D major 9, which is what would happen is if you played an A on top. So if somebody is really adamant, just be like, I'm sorry, man, like I wrote the tune, I know what the chords are,
right,
and this is what they're actually supposed to be.
That's not fair. I'm quitting the band. You're horrible.
Or sometimes you can be like, well, we could try it. We could try it with an A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's another one. You could be like, well, let's actually try it with a chord that you're playing because maybe it does sound better.
Yeah.
Sometimes that it does happen. You're like, huh. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I had a situation actually that happened. The guitarist was playing, a line of chords, and the bassist was playing all the wrong root notes. Like they were all, like for example, he was playing an A root note when the guitar was playing a D. So we know that D major has an A in it, and then he was playing the guitars were playing a D, chord and the bassist was playing an F sharp. So these are all like the notes the bassist was playing is still in the key of the song, but just not the root notes. And it created like the guy was he just didn't have the ability to know where the notes were. He just managed to get the notes in the right key, and as a result of his incompetence, created a very unique, bizarre sound. And when I asked about it, it was like, yeah, we know it's not technically right, but it's kind of weird and strange, and we're fine with it. And like, good. It sounds unique. It sounds like a sound that you guys have made based on that lack of practice or lack of ability. It's a sound in and of itself, like the Sex Pistols. That's what the Sex Pistols were. They were basically, the guy just like found just some random angry people and just put them in a band, showed them how to play a beat.
He fired. On you go. Yeah, he fired the original bass player, Johnny Rotten. He got rid of him because he was too good at playing the bass.
Yep.
You can hear him on. You can hear him on Anarchy in the UK, and like he's a really killer bass player. Like he's really good. And Johnny's like, yeah, no, you're just, you know how to play the instrument too well. You need to leave.
Yeah.
He had a really nice, but like that's the thing. Like compared to the other guys as well, he was like an actual bass player. Like he had a really nice bass, like a Rickenbacker 4003.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
No, not 4003. 4000. It would have been 4001.
Right.
Because it was 4003 is a new model, but he had a Rickenbacker and everything and all the gear, and he was like, yeah, nah, out.
Yeah, go and join.
I'm just gonna get this guy Sid Vicious that I know, who's a total roaster, to play bass instead.
Yeah, so
absolute madness.
It is weird. So that kind of wraps up the 5 points. So point 1, lack of momentum. Point 2, lack of management. 3, money issues. Where's the money going? 4, clashing personalities. Number 5, musical differences. I would say we have covered pretty much all the main points of why bands break up. And if you can see this in your own band, you go, oh, that's happening. Yeah. That's definitely happening in this band. Right, what am I going to do about it?
If you'd like to share... Yeah, if you'd like to share your stories with us about any of these things, we're more that we'd love to read them. We'd love to talk about them on the podcast, maybe.
Totally.
You know, send us emails. We will 100% read them out.
Yeah, 100%. If that's your thing, as long as it's not obscene. But yeah, if there's any questions, if anyone has any questions or requests, as usual, for podcast episodes, or if you want to ask us something or need help with anything, you can always contact us at our website, www.levelupyourband.com, or reach out on social media. We're on YouTube, Level Up Your Band podcast, I think, and Instagrams and Facebook, so you can slide into our DMs, as they say, as the kids say. But anywho, we'll wrap it up there. And again, running joke. I have no idea what we're going to do next week. I'm trying to get some more interviews lined up. So if anyone knows of anyone, or you would like to have anyone on and would like to suggest a person who would be quite cool to be on the show, let us know. We'll see what we can do. But hope you're all doing well and have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God. You took like 15 seconds to say anything there.
I all I heard was like, and then I was like, bye.